Knowing what you went through, you had an opportunity to move to China now. Is that something you would do?
Like, let's say right now, right?
Yeah.
I think during COVID, it was a lot of like, when are you coming back? And kind of what are you doing staying there? Maybe the general theme there is just trying to learn as much as I can and grow as much as I can in different ways. And I know you can do that everywhere, but I think China has really been a great example of like learning those things and challenging yourself in very unique ways.
That's actually one of the reflection I had about going around to other places, and then you realize a lot of things that you were taken for granted. Because I've been living here my entire life. I've lived in China since I was born, and I didn't quite realize like it's fortunate that you can just have a delivery at your door within 30 minutes and everything's fresh and prepared until I leave the country. And when I left, I knew it's probably going to be worse, but when I actually experienced the difference, it really struck me.
All right, so what are we doing here today, guys?
We're boiling a frog in hot water, or in cold water, in warm water.
He's looking at me when he's saying that very directly, but
yeah, how do you feel?
Betrayed, I bet, right?
Betrayed.
Yeah.
Wait, so what happened? So
I don't
what's
want
going
to put
on
words
here?
in your mouth, but that's kind of the word, right?
We can ask the mastermind over here.
The mastermind. It's right across from me.
The two at the end of the table.
So what happened, Jackie?
So Andrew, our friend here, is gonna end his adventure in China, and we thought we'd do something special for him. So I texted Aric, I said hi, and then I basically said, like, should we do something? Because this is basically our last weekend day that all of us are together. And then he said, I have an unconventional idea, and he wouldn't tell me what the idea is. And then he said, I'm gonna go check with a few friends. And I'm like, okay, can you tell me? And then he said, no. And then, I don't know, 3 days later, he said, okay, we're going to bring him to the podcast. And you too. So that's how this all started.
I see. So, Aric, you brought your two friends here.
So what's going on? So how long have you been in China for? And what's the...
More than 10 years altogether. Yeah. 12, I think is, putting it all the time together. The big stint was the last 8 years. Kind of in a couple different cities, and most recently Shanghai for the last 5.
Why are you leaving? Like, what was that decision like?
The main decision was it related to career and just kind of some exciting new opportunities. Family, personal sides of things certainly played into that, but for me, like I definitely view myself as somebody that wants to continue like growing internationally. And for me, I'm from the U.S. I'll be moving back to the U.S. In about a month and a half or so, which is still very surreal to me. I'm kind of going through the motions and jumping through a lot of different requirement hoops to be able to make that process happen, and like get your money out. All of these kind of logistics that you have to think through as you exit China specifically. But it's kind of what's going on right now. A lot of stuff. Yeah.
He has no idea, like, he was supposed to be on the show today.
Yeah. So because Aric is the only one that had any heads up, or Aric and Jackie, actually. The rest of us were kind of in the dark. But I want to, just because I feel like we need to tackle this before we move past into, like, the real conversation, is my feeling coming in. This is just, like, honest, objective feeling walking in, is that I felt a little bit of apprehension from you, Andrew, and it's totally understandable, right? Like, if I was blindsided with like an interview that people are going to listen to, like the public is going to listen to, that I didn't even know,
billions of listeners around the world.
Yeah, billions. I feel a little apprehensive, at least.
I'm sure he's really glad that you're like digging.
No, but I feel like address it, because I feel like it'll be even more awkward if we don't address it and just kind of like go on like business as usual. So I just want to kind of feel like
terrible.
I know we were joking around about this feeling of betrayal, and that's a strong word, okay? But are you nervous in any way? Like, why?
No. Well, like what I was saying before I think we started recording. No, I like number one, like it's honestly like an honor, I would say, to be on this show. Like I've listened to this before, and like I was telling you guys, you guys do have a lot of really great guests, really great topics, experts, in many different fields. And I was being serious to Aric and Jackie earlier at lunch, where this topic kind of came up in a different way, and I was like, yeah, if I ever went on this podcast.
Dude, he's like the spin fucking master, isn't he?
No,
he's like such a spin master. Like, you guys need to grind him a little bit. Like, because I know him, right? I've known him for years. Like, the version that you're getting is so polished because he's one of the smartest, most articulate people I know.
No, that's why I'm trying to confront him about his emotions.
Yes,
like,
but
right off the bat, yeah.
like when you get him behind the scenes, he's not like that. You're getting the polished version.
Yeah, we don't want the polished
version.
version.
This is the honest drink.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, and restart. What really happened?
And now we've made it even more awkward.
Yeah.
We basically just called him a liar. Like, no, you're just lying about everything.
Yeah.
We want the honest truth from you.
Now I'm not sure what to say. I don't know what will be accepted.
Yeah, it's the safe bet is just
Well,
to
I've
stay
asked
quiet.
you to come on the show many times.
I know, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay, well, I have an idea. Let's open up a can of worms here. Okay, and I think this will be fun and it's relevant. In terms of the context here. Okay, so now you're getting ready to leave China, start a new chapter in your life after a decade here. Reflecting back on your time here, I'm sure there's a lot of learnings, right? And it's complicated and probably have to put some time in to think about it. But I guess right off the cuff, like off the top of your head, what are some learnings you think you're taking away after all this time here?
Yeah. The biggest one is just how broadened your perspective is, I think, for living abroad and then also especially in China. Like you said, it's complicated, especially over the past few years. A lot of different types of situations have gone on and, people moving around, like personal lives, like, Jackie, we're all good friends here and, she headed off to another location. So, there's a lot of that. There's a lot of dealing with family situations and trying to stay connected to, I have a pretty big family, several siblings and of course parents and cousins and all of that, good friends back home. And so staying connected virtually and how that looked, during COVID and being able to get back home for the first time in a few years, just earlier this April.
You're super close to your family too, right?
Yeah. I think everybody in my family were like maybe as close as you can be, I guess.
Yeah.
Like in that situation.
And where are they mostly?
Most of them are in the Midwest in the U.S. Omaha is a city, and one of my brothers lives in a pretty nearby. But yeah, Midwest U.S. Is kind of where they are right now.
Did you have any family pressure to move back to the States?
Yeah.
A lot? Like a lot of family? Like, was it pretty intense?
It was, I think from a lot of different people in different ways. So, for example, my parents who have never been, they never had the opportunity to come to China. I was almost like able to convince them prior to COVID and, be able to like, let's get the plane ticket, let's get the agenda sorted. And then, right, kind of the COVID happened and the regulations and all that. Several of my other siblings, they've had a chance to visit. And so that's been like really great for them. So different people, like they totally understood the situation. I think during COVID, it was a lot of like, when are you coming back? And kind of what are you doing staying there? And, I would articulate this to the best of my ability. We would do every simple thing like FaceTime and kind of show, the like, what do I do every day if I walk down the street? Like seeing things like that makes a really big difference just to connect as much as you can to my life. Like the biggest thing that they had is we miss you, right?
Mm-hmm.
You are missing a lot of things going on in your siblings' lives. Your grandparents are getting older. You want to be able to spend time with them. Like these are all things that I, agree with. It's all right, pretty common sense.
When you said you would like FaceTime them, right? Or, have, video chats with them and you would like take them down the street as you're walking, show them kind of your daily life. Was that like an effort to, because you said something and kind of like made me think, was that like an effort to get them away from kind of like the headlines on China versus like the real day life in China kind of thing?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. So there's little things like that, right? And I told them that, the headlines that you're seeing are not necessarily at least my personal experience. And yeah, like things were hard. And there's as everybody in this room knows, there's a lot of political, emotional, lots of different reasons for why, they would be asking me, hey, like, when are you coming back? You need to get out of there. It sounds pretty serious from everything that they are inundated with, on a daily basis. Like even, I think it was my mom, she told me, several of her coworkers, of course, they know that I'm in China, right? Her son is in China, and like they're now asking her, and they're
they're like worried about you.
Yeah. Which it's great to have that amount of care from your parents or siblings, like coworkers, their extended network of acquaintances. But trying to figure out how to deal with that for me was something that I never had the skill set to know how to do that in a good way, and to still kind of maintain my own sanity and not, maybe that's a strong word, but just be able to confidently share some, information with them about like, here's what's actually happening here. And, I'm safe, I'm healthy, I'm doing well. And it was a lot of, sometimes diffusing some conversations and things like FaceTime, sending photos, jumping on some online game, right? These things definitely help, right? That to you to stay connected. So I would do that, at least once a week.
I want to go back just a little bit. When was the first time you came out to China?
2008. Yeah, that was the first visit. I came out, it was actually before that to study a little bit, but first time I actually, let's say, moved here.
And like, what was their like reaction early on? Because like I think you've been in China in a period of time where like things have shifted. A lot of the relationships dynamics have shifted. People's perceptions have shifted. What was like their initial reaction when you did this? Because like to my knowledge, you're the only one in your family that lives abroad, pretty much, right?
Yeah.
In general.
Yep.
Yeah. So I mean that like not even just a China thing. Like just moving outside of the Midwest is kind of a big deal.
Yeah. They were very supportive. Like they were like, this is going to be a great experience for you. Like have fun. Journal. Remember the things that you're going to be do. All the kind of maybe parental advice that that you might hope or in some cases get from family or close friends. So it was very positive.
And you're going back to what, like you said, Austin?
Yep.
Austin, Texas?
Yeah.
Yeah. So like when you go back to the States, do you feel any sort of, I guess, responsibility at all to kind of set the record straight for a lot of people who might only get their information from, let's say, like American headlines, mainstream media, stuff like that, right? Or are you, because before when you said sanity and you're like, that might be a strong word. I don't think it's a strong word at all, because I feel myself losing sanity whenever I get into the realm of trying to have this conversation with certain people. And then it's just like, and then I feel like, why am I even doing this? Like, well, what am I gaining out of this, right? Like, if they want to believe what they want to believe, who am I to, push back against it? Let's let them believe what they want, right? And go on with my life. But then, like, I don't know, sometimes there is like a sense of feeling of like, well, I've kind of seen the other side. Let me try to set the record straight where I can. Not that everything is untrue, but there's certain perspectives that I think are wildly biased. But anyway, back to my point is, when you go back and people are asking you and they're going to learn, hey, you spent 10 years in China, they're going to have questions, right? They're going to be like, what was it like? What was this? They're going to have assumptions about what your experience might have been like. Are you kind of been like, kind of just like go with the flow? You're not going to try to preach? Or do you feel like you're going to try to set the record straight at all?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I think I'm more thinking of having a conversation, at least if that's, I don't know, the appropriate setting. Because sometimes people will ask you, right, and it's just kind of surface level, like, oh, how was China?
Yeah,
a decade. Yeah, and I think there's a lot of people that even I've talked to, whether it's since I've been here or when I've gone back, at least just recently, who have asked like those questions. I would say some people are very open to really understanding, right? Like being genuinely curious about what was it like and what did you see and was it what we were seeing here and how much of a disparity was there, right, between the headlines and your situation. But I would say as a general goal, like being able to go back, in my experience, like China, the China chapter has been incredibly positive, and I've just learned so much. Everybody has been incredibly friendly. There's little things here and there that are, challenging, or big things, like in the past couple of years, but overall it's trying to be a promoter of China in various different conversations and situations. So yeah, I would try to do that. I'm just literally thinking out loud right here, but
well, like I mean, this is an interesting angle, and like I want to make sure we get to it, and I want to back up a little bit, right? So a couple of years and short amount of time in the beginning, you moved back to the U.S. and then you came back out, and then this last stint, 8 years. Where did you live?
So I lived in Nanjing for a good part of that time.
Yeah. And then what about here? When did you move out to Shanghai?
Shanghai, I moved in about 2019. Yeah,
okay,
that's when I came out.
So it's like half that time in Nanjing, half in Shanghai. And I'm curious, right? Like, what did you like most about like being here
in China?
Yeah, what did you like? Going back to Justin's question, like, what do you learn? But maybe just like, what did you enjoy? What did you like about like what kept you out here for so long?
Yeah, that's a question a lot of people ask me. I think a lot of it is just you're in cities that are as big as like a Nanjing or a Shanghai. So there's I think the international element that can introduce in terms of the diversity of people, the casual conversations that you might have like on a daily basis, or bumping into somebody that, is from a different part of China or a different country, or whatever it might be. So you just get to, I think, see a lot of things that you might not either have grown up with or are familiar with or have the opportunity to do maybe back home, right? Kind of quote unquote. That was a big part of it. I think personally, certain parts of the culture were really interesting, like trying to, learn and understand the language. That was a really big initial draw for me to come out here. Just certain, I have a little bit of background in philosophy of all things. And so I did have a chance to study that a little bit of, what certain philosophical traditions of China, and kind of seeing different places and tapping into the history. So the whole cultural side, I think that was a really big draw. And then I think especially maybe in recent years, it's been a lot of just really great experiences, right? It's a comfortable place. It's very international. You can typically go and see things that, again, if I'm back in many cities, at least in the U.S. That I'm familiar with, or that I would be living in, right? Certain things just wouldn't necessarily be available. So I think the general theme there is just trying to learn as much as I can and grow as much as I can in different ways. And I know you can do that everywhere, but I think China has really been a great example of like learning those things and challenging yourself in very unique ways in a lot of cases too.
Yeah. Can you think of like something that like you learned out here that maybe wouldn't be as obvious if you had stayed over there? Like, can you think of anything that shifted your mindset?
The first thing probably is obvious, but just jumps to mind is back to the language. So going like, we were chatting just earlier about banking. So for me, like, I've had a chance to study Chinese a little bit. I picked a lot of it up just in my kind of work environment, and going into, I don't know, like the bank, for example, and trying to, speak another language in a very, that type of environment. So I think things like that, right? Like language wise, that's probably one of the easiest examples. I don't know. I think it's hard to put my finger on like what would be, I don't know, other kind of key learns outside of like the cultural space.
What would you say you've disliked most about your experience here?
Disliked.
Andrew has a problem with negativity, meaning
I
that
do. Yeah.
He's like a super
It's
positive
harder for me to
person.
come.
Like you could like slap him in the face and like, what did you not like about it? It's like, well, no, actually, I thought it was a
learned
great
something.
experience. Yeah, I learned something.
Where does that come from? Like this adverse to like, which I think is a healthy thing, maybe. But I feel like maybe if you're always in denial about negative things, it could also maybe not be so healthy. I don't know. I'm just speaking out loud, right?
Yeah.
Where does this come from then? This kind of like always having to be positive.
I That's a good question.
Were you always like
He's
that? or
like
is it
going for the
something
jug. He's like, no, let's all get everyone in on the conversation, and then he continues.
No, because
to
like
just
you
like
bring up these really fascinating
No.
things. I'm like, I'm truly curious about it.
Yeah, I probably don't have a good answer. Like, I don't think there's one reason. Like, the only thing I can think of is either it's how I was brought up, and there's just a lot, like, maybe there's some kind of the nurture type of element to it. But I think personally, I do try to stay very curious about a lot of stuff. And yeah, to Aric's example, if somebody slaps me in the face, like, that's not a great experience. But even if something does happen that's really challenging, the easiest example would be COVID, right? Like, how to go through something like that in an environment that is unique, in this case to China, and how that was progressing here,
Especially here in Shanghai.
yeah, especially Shanghai. Like, I tried my best to try to really understand, like, what can I personally learn from that? And there's some things that you don't like, and there's some things that you can learn from.
Well, would you say the lockdown was the toughest time you've had here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's primarily because of the impact that it had on others. Not necessarily. I mean, yeah, for me, there's everything that a lot of us here experience. I know, and Aric is going to jump on that, but I would say that the bigger point for me was just how I saw it impact other, like, specifically family, and then how they would then kind of reach out to me and say again, like,
family that was outside of China.
outside of China,
because they were like freaking out, right?
Yeah.
Wait, let me ask you a quick question. So, like, when did the sentiment, if it did, from your family start to turn into maybe a more like slightly negative narrative? Was it like the pandemic, or like were they kind of cool? They're like, okay, he comes back, he visits us a couple times a year, and they were cool with the status quo, and then the pandemic hit, and they were like, get the fuck out of there?
More or less, yeah.
Yeah.
That was definitely the trigger.
Yeah, because like what I know, and I haven't met your family, but I mean, like they know of me, I know of them.
Yeah.
It's like they're super caring, and your mom is like super. From what I've heard, she's super sweet. So she must have been, and she's a nurse.
Yeah,
and she must have been worried like hell. Because I can only think, like, when you talk about her, it's like kind of like when I talk about my mom. I mean, I don't like. They just must have been so freaked out.
Yeah,
like
Yeah.
So, what was that conversation like? Like, in their minds, what were they thinking you were going through, and versus what would you tell them?
They knew how difficult it was, I think, right? Like, I live by myself, right? Everybody was locked down, and what do you do every day? And how do you stay sane? How do you just do how do you get food? How do you get like all of these things, right? So those were kind of the questions, and we just talk very openly about it.
So I see Jackie just like smirking the whole time.
I can't see. Okay.
Because of anyone, arguably, Jackie knows Andrew probably better than anyone in the world. So, like, let's get a little bit of Jackie's reaction.
Yeah.
Like
I've been observing, and it's quite interesting that you talked about how Andrew being positive all the time. And then I think when you were talking about something and I started to smirk because he's exactly doing it again. Because you're trying to get something negative out of him, and he just flipped it immediately into something
He's
positive.
slipping those
I'm
punches.
sorry.
Yeah.
mhm.
He's
And
like
that-
Floyd Mayweather with
Fucking
those.
Yeah.
Mayweather, dude.
That's where I looked at Aric and I laughed. I'm like, he's doing it again. Even like, so we're talking about COVID. During the worst COVID days, Andrew was in a very bad supply situation. Because all the group buys happening, the community he lived in doesn't have those to start with. And then when they kick it off, he also couldn't access those because it's all like group chats in Chinese and you don't know what to order. And then I think there was some point Aric even freaked out and called the helpline, and like our company has a helpline, and said something like this people's gonna starve. Can you please send him something? And that's how negative it is. But listening to what he just said, you couldn't feel any of those.
You would never
right?
have known that.
Yeah, it
He
was
was
really
down
bad.
to his last thing of water. I remember.
Water.
I was like, how much water?
Yeah.
He's like, oh, it's okay. I'll just like
Boil
I'll
water.
just drink my own pee, kind of thing. Were you honestly? Was that did I cross your mind?
No, not that part.
It's an honest question. If you're down to your last like bottle of water,
well, I mean, like I was talking about this even with, even with these guys, but I think it was back to like you could boil water. I mean, it's like you're not gonna if you have to go down that path, like you could do that, right? You're not gonna
Like boil tap water.
Well, a lot of Chinese local families do that anyway.
yeah, even
normally,
without
so
the lockdown,
yeah,
boil
they
the-
do that.
Right.
They
And
prefer that.
And I asked a lot of people at that time, like on that example, and they're like, yeah, we just we just boil water. What's wrong? Like, and you can figure heavy metals and all these things, but like that's probably what I would have had to do. And maybe I'm in certain cases lucky because of a lot of support that was given right at that critical juncture.
But I'm just thinking like, okay, like growing up, in Texas where like there were a lot of Caucasian families and stuff. And like the first thing in my mind would be like you're in a kind of a nice Caucasian family, whatever, right? Or just like non-ethnically Chinese or Asian. And it's like, why the hell would you subject yourself? You know what I'm saying? Like to be like, why the fuck would you go all the way across the world to subject yourself to like basically a lockdown and then be like, oh, it's great. I just boil some water, like what the hell are you thinking, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I like I said, I haven't really reflected on this in like a psychological sense, but the only thing I can think of is I would just try to do whatever I could do to make that situation like better or livable or so. I mean, in the case of boiling water, like, okay, to me, like it's not a big deal.
You were
like,
never scared though? Because so Jackie was in a similar situation.
I was scared.
And
I was scared. I was freaking out.
And Jackie's pretty composed, right?
Yeah.
Like she's very, very like self-sufficient. But you were like freaking out.
Yeah.
I remember you broke down.
I broke down completely. And I was literally counting how many bags of instant noodle I have in my cupboard. Because I don't cook at home. So when the whole thing hit, I've got no supply at all. And then it's like, how many bottles of water? Because I've got a dog as well. The dog has to drink the bottled water. So I need to give bottled water to the dog. And then just boil.
No, boiled water.
Boiled water
for the humans. Boiled water for the humans.
And then I do the boiled water.
So you were giving your dog the bottled water and you were drinking the tap water.
Yes.
Oh my God.
Wow.
And then I ran out of dog food as well. And there's no human food neither. So I was like freaking out. So people were joking like, you can eat your dog. I'm like, no. What are you talking about?
That's a horrible joke. Who was saying that? Oh, they were joking. They were joking.
They were joking.
Okay.
They were just half joking. I'm like, no. Like I would chop part of myself off and feed my dog, but I wouldn't.
Okay. All right.
Now we're getting into the conversation.
Let's cut
No,
out.
this is where the episode ends.
You can leave now.
That's how negative I can get.
Yeah.
I freaked out, and once I heard his situation, I'm like, I have more bread and cup noodles.
He didn't have shit.
And he didn't have anything.
Like literally.
And I started to worry about him and stopped worrying about myself.
One of the reasons I didn't worry as much as I probably should have at that time is like we did have a pretty great response as much as it could have been at that point from like I would say our company. And also I think just from like the relationships and the connections that, the three of us had at that time and also others that we're close with, like if those two things were yanked out and there was no, let's say from a supply perspective, if I was just completely on my own, right? Like a lot of people probably have felt that would have been, I honestly don't know how I would have, been able to get through that. But I had those two kind of safety nets in a sense or advantages.
Knowing what you went through, you had an opportunity to move to China now. Is that something you would do?
So it's hard because you already have the knowledge and everything.
Exactly. Knowing what you know now.
But
basically.
yeah, but like based on like a younger version of you, right? Like it was like your younger brother or something, right? Like, okay, do you come out? Do you not come out?
Like let's say right now, right?
Yeah.
Honestly, it's fine.
No, yeah,
it's a
I'm
conversation.
thinking, yeah.
I mean, it's hard to unwind what you've done in the last couple of years, but just try to unwind all that and be like, do you come out? Do you not come out? What do you think?
I would say it's in terms of the China experience, like I would come out to I would maybe be able to select a couple different cities. But like, I think, for instance, right now, if I were to have an opportunity to come to like Shanghai, that would be a really good experience if I have never had something like that before. So like how I think of this is if I were to, let's say go back to the US and someone is considering, hey, same thing, like I've never been to China. Would you recommend, going there for this whatever period of time experience and kind of seeing what happens? Like for sure, I would recommend
well then
that.
they say, you know what, but Andrew, like you went through that lockdown, all this stuff. What if it happens again? Like, do you really think I should go? What would you say? It's like, I don't want to get locked down.
We're like really trying to pin him down.
Because he's so elusive.
No.
Well, he answered that last question pretty straightforward, I feel. He said yes.
Yeah. I don't know. I think the lock. It's hard to separate a lot of emotions from that, but I do think something like the lockdown. I mean, who knows if that would ever happen again? I want to I try to be optimistic that something like that would never happen again because of all the learns like at a government level, right? And even at like a worldwide level, and so many things that have happened maybe to optimize how that would look in the future. Again, that could be totally wrong, but that's where my mind goes. And so if somebody is concerned about that though, it's a good question, but I would still say it's probably like something simple, like it's probably not going to happen again. Again, like I'm sure a lot of people would maybe disagree with that. Some might agree with it, but that's kind of what I would think, at least at this moment.
Can we ask Jackie the same question? Because right after the lockdown, she left China. She got the hell out of here.
Where did you go?
I went to Singapore.
Okay.
She's just visiting. She's just visiting Shanghai.
Oh,
right
so
now.
you're just visiting. Oh, so you're based in Singapore.
Yeah,
right
she
now.
got out.
Okay.
So I moved to Singapore last October.
Mm-hmm.
I went not because of COVID or lockdown. It just happened that there was a job out there. And I always had this. So to backtrack a little bit, I stayed in the UK for a year to study. And then once I came back, I already said this to myself. Within 10 years, I want to move out to China again because I realized the importance of going back and forth to understand my country better. And then when that 10th year hit, it was during COVID times. And I couldn't get out. And I was already interviewing for jobs, but because of COVID, everything had to stop. So then once COVID sort of, I couldn't see the light at the end of the tunnel. So I started job search again and see if I can still achieve my goal within 10 years to move out of China. And that's when my current manager told me, oh, there is a job in Singapore. Would you be interested in it? Singapore was never on my list to move out. I was always thinking about going to London or Japan or like those places. And I'm like, Singapore's interesting. Okay, let's talk about it. Mm-hmm. So we talked about it and it was very fast and furious. Within 3 months, I already landed in Singapore.
Nice. How long have you been out there again?
1 year.
1 year? Okay.
1 year, yeah. It's again, another experience where I can get out of China and look in China again, especially with all the conversations happening right now, like globally, politically. It's very interesting to get that fresh viewpoint because living in a different country is different from traveling there, right? You live there long enough, more than 3 months, you get to know the people, know the culture, you talk with the locals, or the international group over here, and then you start to hear different things about China. And that's where I feel like, yes, that's why I want to come out. And I'm glad I made it.
So can you share some like of your learnings or the change in your view of this country after having lived in Singapore? Like, what's that conversation like?
The most direct experience I had was actually on this trip back. So I landed in Shanghai a week ago, and we went to a wedding, a friend's wedding. And it was a long travel day for me, and I had makeup on, and I realized I didn't bring any face wash. Somebody reminded me, hey, you can get it on Ele.me, and if you order it, it could probably arrive within 30 minutes. I forgot about that because it would never happen in Singapore. And I told my friend, oh, I'm glad you reminded me, and I ordered and the stuff arrived, and it's all correct, all on time. And I was amazed.
I thought Singapore isn't that fast.
No, my delivery, I don't know if it's me being unlucky or anything. My delivery experience was really bad. I ordered something from Amazon Fresh. It came in and it's molded. There are mold on it, yeah, because it's too wet and too humid. And then whenever I order takeout, either came in late, came in wrong, or my stuff got spilled, or it's incomplete. It's just, it's terrible. So when I had that experience again coming back, I'm like, oh my God, this is, like I knew how advanced it is. When I was moving out, I knew I'm going to miss Taobao, I'm going to miss Ele.me. But when I experienced that all over again, I'm like, wow, like China is really at the forefront of all these things. And it just, I don't know how other countries could catch up.
Even Hong Kong. Like when I was in Hong Kong, I'm ordering, you're making that face.
No, because that was, okay, go on.
The exact same thing, right? When I was in Hong Kong, I would order a delivery thinking that it would be the similar experience to here.
You're like, it's Hong Kong.
Well, first
right?
of all, the menu system was horrible. Like the ordering menu system like sucked. And then whenever the delivery came, it was always like this battle with the delivery guy of understanding what he was saying and just being like really not cooperative. And I was like, this is horrible. Like ordering delivery food in Hong Kong was not a pleasant experience.
So I was laughing because I literally yesterday I spent a day. My cousin from Hong Kong visited me, and she grew up in Hong Kong all her life. She has a family there now, but she rarely comes to Shanghai. Right? Like they just never really came here. So she arrived the day before, but I met up with her yesterday. She left today, so she was only here for 2 days. She brought her kid, and yeah, it was the same experience because I took her to like Dongsan Gongyuan and I took her around and we had brunch and everything like that. And we were talking and, I'm just showing her the city and thinking nothing of it. And, because she lived all her life in Hong Kong, so she knows what's up, right? And I thought like I almost thought like, okay, people in Hong Kong, they probably have a better understanding of, let's say, a city like Shanghai or mainland China than maybe most people like abroad, right? Because just of the proximity factor, the cultural factor. But the more like I interact with a lot of Hong Kong people who don't normally travel here, they actually don't. So to them, when they come here, it's also like very eye-opening because like she's lived in Hong Kong all her life, just a stone's throw away from me right here, right? Like, and she's coming here, she's like, oh my God, this is like, oh my God, it's so advanced here. Oh my God, it's so much cleaner here. Oh my God, the landscaping on the streets is so much better here. Like, it's like, and I'm like, what do you mean? Like, you come from, like, I love Hong Kong, right? Because I genuinely love Hong Kong. And I'm like, but isn't it like pretty good there too? Like, what I didn't feel like there was that huge of a difference. But apparently for people who spend their whole lives there, they come here and they do feel that impact. Just like you're saying, Jackie, like that kind of putting things into perspective a little bit, and then you start appreciating a little bit more.
Yeah, that's actually one of the reflection I had about going around to other places, and then you realize a lot of things that you were taken for granted. Because I've been living here my entire life. I've lived in China since I was born, and I didn't quite realize like it's fortunate that you can just have a delivery at your door within 30 minutes and everything's fresh and prepared until I leave the country. And when I left, I knew it's probably going to be worse, but when I actually experienced the difference, it really struck me. And that's where I realized, yeah, it's like people need to experience this because a lot of stuff they read on, I mean, like people outside of China, a lot of stuff they read on the media, it might not be talking about how fast the delivery is. It might be something else that's more serious, right? And then to the question that they asked you, Andrew, earlier, would you recommend anybody to come over? I'd say yes, because visiting and living in a different place is different. And if you're just visiting, especially when you don't have locals to take you around, you don't realize the apps people interact with every day, the way they get around every day. Because you're just here for a few days to do all the touristy stuff. So for me, I'd say yes. Like even lockdown happen again, I would still say yes. Because horrible things could happen anywhere in the world.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, there are lots of headlines and I like to look at things more holistically, right? But it's important to understand the day-to-day because that's what people experience. Because the headlines are going to be chess pieces that different countries and governments are playing against each other and large corporations. And then there's the real world, the day-to-day. And what is that like? And so like I don't think what we're saying is, oh, if you have faster delivery, it automatically means society is good. But if you have faster delivery, it means that people have to work together. There has to be technology, there has to be companies, there has to be a focus on what people need. And that represents, then you can sort of infer some things from that whole process, right? And then what is the actual day-to-day like? I think that's all really important.
Yeah, that's actually a really good point. I never really even thought about it that way. Because I was going to say like, oh, the counter argument to that is people listening might be like, you guys are talking about freaking food delivery. and we were talking about like you almost starving from a lockdown. Like, how can you even compare the two in terms of negatives and positives, right? And I totally get that. But like Aric, like what you were saying, I think totally makes sense. Like, we're not exactly saying that. We're not saying, oh, just because you can get your food on time and without much problem here means everything's good. Not at all. But it does infer, and you can extrapolate a lot of things from that. What has to come into play to build a society that has something like that? What does that kind of signal about a certain society? For sure.
And both sides.
Yeah, for sure.
What does it signal about a society that, okay, yes, we were safe for several years, like life was totally normal, but then there was a really hard period of time where we basically collapsed that 3-year bad experience that other places had into like a much more condensed period of time.
Well, 3 years like condensed into 3 months.
Yeah,
basically.
and you can argue, because like I think like for many of us, it was really, really harsh, but I don't think we have too much trauma from it. But I think when you lengthen it to 3 years, although not as harsh, I think that actually caused arguably more issues. But even so, like the negative of being locked down and all that stuff, then what can you infer from that? And then like, it's both sides. Yeah. It's good and bad, right? So we're
both
not arguing.
Of the coin.
Yeah, we're not arguing that any place is better than the other. We're arguing that probably every place is trying in some way. One thing they're trying to do is make lives better. But they're also trying to do other things. Don't get me wrong, right? Mm-hmm. Every government is trying to do something. But there is that focus. And then you can kind of decide like, well, what's the merit and the trade-offs of the strategy? Every structure and strategy leads to different outcomes. And those outcomes are in some ways contextual to the environment. What would work in the US is not going to work here, and probably vice versa. Right? Because the expectations of people who live there are completely different. But traveling back and forth in different places, then you get that perspective. And I think more people in China need to leave China so that they understand China better. And this goes back to Frank Chai's, right? East learning, I think it was Frank. East.
Yes, it was Frank.
Yeah, East like learning more about the East from dialogue with the West, and West learning more about the West itself through dialogue with the East and learning more about each other. Because we see when that breaks down and you see the conflict now, it's horrendous what's happening in the world.
And it's not only Chinese, but I think like everyone, like it's this term, I bring up, we brought up repetitively on this show. And what you were saying earlier, Andrew, triggered me about it. And what you were saying was, I think, really insightful, Jackie, in terms of your experience. It's really this cross-pollination, right? Mm-hmm. Like the whole world cross-pollinating. And unfortunately, I feel like we're seeing that less and less in the current kind of iteration of the world right now. But who knows? I have confidence that that's going to change, as it always does. These things fluctuate through time, right? And like going back to the bigger, larger discussion we were having in terms of like, would you recommend someone to go to a certain place, right? And what would be the factors in your decision to advise someone yes or no about that? And I love what both of you were saying, both Andrew and Jackie. And it's just, I think the honest answer is like, if the person's motive is to broaden their horizons, gain some life experience, bring some new perspective in terms of their worldview, it doesn't matter so much if the place is like good or bad. That's not even the way to put it. Like, I think, okay, here's the way to put it. I would recommend someone go as long as it's not like life-threatening to go there, right? If the place is not in a state of like actual war where it would literally be life-threatening for you to go. Even if a place you go and it would be like generally for most people a negative experience, and they wanted to go, I'd probably still advise them to do that if it wasn't life-threatening, because that still builds character. That probably expands your worldview even more so than going to a place that's similar to where you came from, that has all the life's comforts that you're normally used to. It's like, no, go outside your comfort zone. See how the other half lives in this world, or more than half, the majority really lives in this world, and experience that. It could be harsh. It could suck. That's good, right? And I think that would probably play a role even more so advising someone, like if my son, when he grows old enough, I don't think I would protect him from quote unquote hard places to be, as long as it's not life-threatening.
I'd agree. While you were saying that, I was actually curious, what brought you three to China? Have you ever talked about that in the show?
I came out here because I was ignorant. I didn't really know what the hell was going on. I came out here for very shallow and superficial reasons that then turned into much deeper and more significant, meaningful reasons. I came out here just out of curiosity, right? And my family coming from this part of the world probably had some factor in it. You know, like if like, I don't know, I have friends that have been in Russia, been in other places, right? Would I have stayed this long? You know, if I didn't have a deeper connection? It's hard to say, right? It's much harder. I mean, Andrew, you can probably relate to that, right? It's easier when you know that you have some type of roots here. But I came out here just dumb luck, and I'm one of the best decisions I ever made, you know? But then it also makes me think about, we've talked about this, what's next, right? Do I want to go back to my comfort zone, or should I actually push myself and make this part of like who I am? But family really factors into it as well. So part of me is like, I should just keep pushing myself. You know, we should move to other countries. And then part of me is like, well, no, like I've got to, you know, cherish the time that I have left with my parents and the rest of the family, you know. And I think probably something weighing heavily on Andrew's mind as well.
I think, yeah, family is, I guess it's always one of the priorities, right? Yeah. But you know, over the past couple of years, to see grandparents getting older, right? Parents getting old, like people just going through different things. Like one of the things I think about, and I do regret, but it wasn't something that I can necessarily control. One of my younger brothers got married over COVID, and you know, I wasn't able to go back. And you know, everybody's like, "Oh, we totally understand. You know, it's fine, as much as it can be." But then, you know, I find myself sitting here and thinking about the future, and like, yeah, that was a moment in time that it does have a, you know, ripple kind of lasting impact, you know, over the years. And yes, again, you can't really control these things, but I think, yeah, just kind of going back to what Aric was saying, like family definitely is, you know, priority, something that is, you know, driving a lot of decisions, whether it's me, you know, being able to move back and look at different opportunities in different locations, or just, you know, how you in general stay connected as much as you can, regardless of where you are. Yeah. I don't know, Jackie, what do you think?
I still want to ask about Justin and how his experience, because just being, let me back myself up a little bit, because that question could seem a little bit weird.
Welcome to the Jackie Show.
Yeah.
What's up, everybody? I'm Jackie.
Because
I'm liking the show. Please rate, comment, or subscribe.
I was born and raised here, and the city I came from, it's really rare to see like a expat, or even like a foreign face. So the way I grew up, I always think...
They have dinosaurs, though.
Yeah, but we have dinosaurs. Changzhou. Yeah. So when I first came to Shanghai, I think it was high school, my mom took me here. And I was like, oh, there are people actually look different. Like just the face is different, the skin color is different, the eyes are different, and they are taller and they look better. I mean, I see them in TV, but I never saw them in person. So when I graduate from high school, we have to enter the college entrance exam, and I have to pick like which schools I want to go. I picked all the schools in Shanghai because I want that experience again, because I knew there is something there that's unknown and that excites me. And that's how I came over. And since I landed in Shanghai, I'm always curious on why people come here, especially when you're not in this country. Like, why would you come here? And why would you come here and stay here? Mm-hmm. And then I had another interesting experience. When I was second year in my college, I was lucky enough to be able to go to the University of San Diego.
What? You never told me that. You were in San Diego?
Yeah.
What?
No,
Do you know this,
study,
Andrew?
Just
I feel betrayed.
Just a short study tour. It's not like an official thing. And that's where I see people with different hair colors, like they dye their hair in green. And I came from a family that my mom would absolutely kill me if I dye my hair in green. And there are people like doing skateboarding in the school. I'm like, oh, that's not my college life.
Is that when you got your tattoo?
No, that's a
she
different.
Has a tattoo.
That's a different story.
Rebellious.
Yes,
that's a different story.
Mrs. Wang, your daughter has a tattoo.
And once I came back, I started to realize that the world is not just the 6 square feet in front of me in the dormitory, and there is a whole different world out there. I wonder, like, people in different time zones, what are they doing? People in different countries, what are they doing? So that curiosity gets stronger and stronger. So whenever I meet people like Andrew, like Aric, like you're coming to China, I also always wanted to know, like, what make you come here, and how did it feel when you land and you step out of that plane and you smell the air?
Yeah.
What was it like?
And we'll give them a chance to answer the question, but like I want to touch on your point. It's curiosity, right? And I think some people are driven by curiosity. And I recently thought about another word we all know, discovery. And it's the thrill of discovery. It's not just curiosity. It's because people can be curious about a lot of different things, but it's that hunt, that chase. And when you've experienced it, that discovery is something novel. And it might not be novel to people, but it's novel to you. And that's what's so cool about discovery and curiosity, is because it's so personal to you, right? And so for you, like just coming to Shanghai, and then you get a taste of that, and then you want more. And I think we should never let go of that feeling, because I think that arguably like discovery is what drives like human beings to get better.
Please.
Back to you, to our host, our guest host today, Jackie.
Okay, I'll go then. One of the things that I realized when I first came to Shanghai, and I was coming back in the early 2000s, my mom wanted me to come much earlier. And I was saying, hell no, because I was like, what the hell is this place? To be honest, I'm being honest here, okay? Living in New York City, I came to Shanghai, I was like, whoa, way too different. This is not my thing. I can't do it. Plus, I didn't speak Chinese. And it wasn't until I had a job opportunity in Hong Kong, actually. And then they needed me to speak Mandarin, and I couldn't speak Mandarin. So my mom was living in Shanghai. She's like, if you're going to learn Mandarin, come to Shanghai. So I was like, all right, fine, I'll come for like half a year, And it was not by choice. I moved here and started learning. I got a tutor and started learning Mandarin. But honestly, it was still very different than what I knew back in New York. But that's what got me. And to go with what Justin was saying, that was getting out of my comfort zone. And at that time, we were just starting with the VPN thing and Facebook getting blocked, YouTube getting blocked. I had this whole plan to create this blog so all my friends back in New York can see me day to day on my Facebook and like whatever. Yeah, that plan went out the window.
You were gonna rage against the system, right?
Yeah, exactly. It was like out the window. But what kept me here and what got me really interested was that, as Aric said, this discovery. You feel like you discovered this place where this energy, this enthusiasm is just intrinsic in everybody you meet. And all of a sudden it's bleeding into me, and I couldn't leave. And that's one of the things that was so powerful. And we joke about it in the sense of, yeah, clubbing and like whatever. That's the smallest part of it, honestly, because I really feel you're looking at me like you don't believe me, Aric. I know you so well. In your brain, you're like,
no, I just have.
Right?
No. Keep going.
No, but honestly,
it's the smallest part of it, but it took up most of our time.
We were young. No, but just in general, I think also had to do with like the work that I was doing. But it's just meeting a lot of people. I was learning Chinese. I was using it as much as possible every day. And that in itself was polar opposite to my day-to-day living back in New York. And I think that was interesting, because one of the reasons why I decided to leave New York is because I quit my job. I broke up with my long-term girlfriend, and I felt like everything was kind of like in this place where I was just not excited. And the fact that I flipped everything around and was able to live, quote unquote, a different life, that's what was exciting,
Yeah, and I mean, like, we're being really positive here, so we'll have to be negative in a second. But like learning new things every single day, I think that is the exciting piece. Wherever you are, right? It's like pushing yourself, learning new things. And I think like China, Shanghai, the last 10, 15 years has been that crucible of experimentation. And the most important reason, meeting Justin and me.
Yeah, but honestly, so I want to
discovering new friends, one-on-one friends.
And one of the things I want to link up is, again, with the original question I had, a previous one of, would you recommend coming back again now, knowing what you know, and comparing to what life was like when you first came to now? The reason why I say that is because I feel like Shanghai now, even though it is quite technologically advanced, as Jackie just mentioned, with amazing delivery and stuff like that. And for me, it's more about Shanghai is probably closer to what I would imagine what New York was when I first came. Forget about technology and stuff like that, but just in terms of international, the feeling of international,
the culture,
the high level cuisine, the
art,
art, all that stuff. It's closer to a standard that I would, if I was back in 2007 when I moved here, I would be like, oh, yeah, no problem. I can move to Shanghai. I wouldn't think about it, because it would just be like,
it wouldn't be a difference.
Yeah. So the most to me would be like, okay, yeah, I'll come. I'll just learn Chinese. That's my main factor, as opposed to coming here at that time, adventure. Like every day was an adventure, and part of that adventure is because every day-to-day life was so different than what you knew.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, especially in our context of where we were at that specific time, coming to Shanghai in that specific time, that era. I mean, we say this all the time, like that, and I still believe this. Like that was the golden age to be in Shanghai. Was that period of time from like maybe like 2009, several years after, right? And I feel like certainly the city objectively, if you look at it, it's definitely different. And subjectively, it definitely feels different, right? And not different in a worse way, just different, right? And like, and it reminds me of like what Jackie, you were saying earlier, because you were talking about your short stint a while back in San Diego. And you were talking about the difference. You're like, oh my God, like I saw like people with like dyed green hair. They were skateboarding. And I was just thinking, wait, if you go outside our studio right now and walk down Changlulu in Shanghai, you will see kids with dyed green hair skateboarding, right? So it's like,
yeah, exactly.
So it's like, okay, well, let's put things into perspective a little bit. Yes, it's different from our quote unquote golden age, from us like oldies who've like been here, and we still reminisce, oh, the good old days, right? But if you look at it now, like the young culture here has changed a lot, has gotten a lot more progressive. And I'm speaking just for Shanghai, right? But this trickles throughout China as a country. But obviously these kind of things happen in the more metropolitan places first. They kind of set the trends. So you see that. You see exactly what you saw before in San Diego, now here. And it's just, I don't know. I don't know what the larger point is. I'm not trying to make a point. I'm just saying, like, these things do progress, and maybe some of it is just us not always keeping up with all the changes, and we get stuck on the good old days, right? And we're not really in the cut to really understand how the city is really evolving still. Yeah. And because we're just not part of it. We're not hooked into the city and the pulse of the city like we used to be, right? When we used to go out all the time. We're not. We're homebodies, right? I mean, we just don't know.
Well, Jackie, what's your impression of things? Like, we were just walking around a little bit, right? What's your impression? Like, coming back this time, you see any changes? Like, does anything stand out to you this time?
I definitely notice a lot of restaurants come and goes. I think there are definitely places that was closed during COVID, but maybe a few weeks later, there is a new place coming. And the number of new place that I saw, just the walk that we just went on, is more than the new places that I saw in the US with the trip that I just went. So
what do you mean? Like, you mean new places that are open? You mean?
Yes.
Like
Yeah. Let me make it more specific. I went to the US right before COVID, and then I came back again a few months ago. And I do realize there is this supermarket that went out of business, but that's it. And all the other things were there. The restaurant, the noodle shop, the hot pot place, they're all there. But just that 15-minute walk we took on, I noticed at least 5 different restaurants. And I was actually pointing out to them, oh, there was this shop over there. Now it's something different. And oh, that's the shop that's been renovated. Yeah. So I think the amount of changes and the speed of change is just fascinating. And again, I knew that when I was in Shanghai, because people always talked about how fast things change in Shanghai. But now I had the experience to see all that happening just by stepping out and coming back again.
Now that you've moved abroad for at least a year, and combining that with the other times that you have lived abroad, do you feel like there's a certain amount of appreciation for what you had here in Shanghai?
Yeah,
that has
definitely.
grown?
Yeah, definitely.
Because the reason why I ask is because I've spoken to people that are dying to get out of here. Grass is greener on the other side, especially to even like America, because I'm American. So they'll say America. Like, yeah, I'll go to America. America's great. I'm not gonna. I wasn't taking a stand in those conversations, but the fact that they're just dying to get out of here because they still hold this negativity towards where they live now. It could be because that's all they know. Or
How long have they been here?
No, local Chinese.
Oh, locals.
I'm talking about local Chinese.
They're dying to get out here.
Yeah,
get out of here. Wow.
Yeah. So I'm just curious. Were you like that before? Were you dying to get out of here, or?
No, it was just part of my career planning. But I know what you're saying. I've got at least 2 friends like that, like very close friends. One is planning her trip out to become a permanent resident in Japan, and the other one is trying to move out to the US. And it's exactly what you're saying. It's the COVID experience or whatever that they feel like it's not right to be here anymore, and then they just want to get out. Yes. For me, I think I was lucky enough that I got out and I came back. And that's where I think the differences happens. Because like you said, like life is always elsewhere. It feels like the grass is always greener. But I believe once they leave the country and they had opportunity to come back again, there should be little things that they would appreciate more about this country.
Yeah, and it's not even like I'll add another spin to it, right? It's not even just about like what's the best place or like you should always be loyal to the place you're in. You should just live in different places so then you can decide, hopefully, like what type of place that really suits you. And I realize that is a privilege. It's a total privilege to have the resources. Most people can't.
Yeah.
But like for the rest of us, then we should really cherish that and live in different places and actually appreciate every single place that we're in and just recognize that it's like not, it's not easy. Like how many people go into making a place what it is?
Yeah.
There's no one person.
Yeah, because you feel like, okay, my life stuck at here. Once I move to that place, my life will be great. No, it's not going to be.
Yeah.
It's always like your mindset and how you see those experiences. Your life might still be stuck when you move to the new place because you couldn't get the bank card sorted, or you couldn't get a place you want, or you find out the education is so expensive. There's always things like that would happen. And turning this back to Andrew, like how can you keep it positive and you can just make peace with where you are?
Well, it's what you choose to focus on, right? I think like once like with at least like your basic needs met, like Maslow's hierarchy and stuff like that. So you're not living in a place where you're really fighting day to day for different necessities. Okay, so we're living in the first world, right? Most like us, we're privileged here at this table. But beyond that, like, I think a lot of these differences are like what I think what you're saying, Jackie, is a lot of it is just like emotional. A lot of it is mental in terms of what you're choosing to harp on, focus on. And that's probably dictated a lot by your own individual negative experiences that you've had to kind of inform that, mental position, right? That emotional position that you're holding on to. And for sure. And I personally I think like right after or even during the pandemic, there were a lot of people, especially a lot of expats, were talking about like, yeah, I want to get the F out of here. I just want to get the F out of here. And so a lot of that talk, obviously, in group chats, and that used to like really, really bug me, right? And precisely because, I don't know, like I'm really appreciative in many ways of this city, that I've been able to live here almost 15 years, and except for like really like 3 months of that time, like, it's been awesome, right? And so it used to like honestly really bug me, and I can openly say that now. But I've changed, and it doesn't bug me anymore because I feel like I've opened up to the idea of like, hey, everyone should make the best decision that they feel is best for them and their families. And even during like a Zoom episode we did during the lockdown, we were speculating how many people are going to leave and how different the city is going to look. How many people are still going to hold on to that grudge of the lockdown? And are all the foreigners just going to be gone? We're not going to see any more foreigners here anymore. All this speculation and all this talk. And I was just thinking, and I was saying, like, the people we're going to see in their actions, right? Like, no matter what people are saying now, that's very emotionally charged and rightfully so. We're going to see in their actions whether they actually pick up and leave, especially the people with families, I feel, because that's going to speak louder than words. For the ones that ended up staying, no matter how much trash talk they were talking, the ones that ended up staying, there must have been a reason they're staying. There must have been, the benefits must have outweighed the negatives for them to stay, especially to keep their kids here and all that. And the ones who the benefits don't outweigh the negatives, they're going to leave. And we saw a lot of people go, for sure. I also saw a lot of people leave and come back. Okay, actually, I wouldn't say a lot of people, but there are a handful of people I know that left, and then they ended up coming back. And so that's almost an interesting kind of conversation to have because I feel like it's just about practicing a little more empathy, right? And understanding, like, look, we don't need to be so like loyalist to like, oh, you got to stay here because, you know, you've been living here and why are you leaving now after this? Like, look, everyone gets to make that decision for themselves and there's no right or wrong with that. It's a very personal decision. Everyone has the right to do it. So it's just kind of, I guess, really interesting, like a human experiment, we always say, to see why are people leaving, and especially to kind of keep in touch with them afterwards for a longer period of time to see how are they doing? How are they enjoying it, right? How are they feeling about their decisions? Like, honestly, because a lot of people initially will be like, they don't want to admit, right? So they'll be like, oh, of course I love it here. Of course I love it here. And a few months later they come back, right? But it's always interesting to kind of see. And I don't know, I'm just sharing kind of my own personal maybe growth, I guess, in terms of not connecting that with any sort of emotional feeling at all in terms of right or wrong or I approve of it or not approve of it. I mean, that's all bullshit.
Yeah. We're not here to judge those
Yeah,
actions.
no judgment whatsoever. Yeah, and it's just like, oh, let's all make that decision.
Justin's all grown up. All grown up.
Please give me
brilliant.
Standing ovation, please.
Let's jot down that clip. That one's gonna make the Xiaohongshu.
That one's
sure.
like the ultimate virtue signal.
The ultimate.
Yeah, all grown up.
I'm so better. I'm so much better.
Like,
now
I'm
than
so
this.
happy and I'm just content and it doesn't matter.
Have you thought about after you leave certain elements of your life here that you will miss?
Oh, for me, yeah.
Have you
it's
thought
almost
about?
like I have a list. Yeah.
Do you have a list?
What's on the top of that list?
Well, I would say like
That's a fake list, then. Obviously.
That's a fake.
I mean, I think in terms of the city itself, right? Like tied to the location. I mean, Jackie spoke about, you know, the convenience factor. I think for me, it's a little bit more intangible, but it's a little bit about just the life of the city itself. So you're walking down any street, and you know you'll see a new noodle shop or you know a new museum that popped up literally on our walk over here. And I think it's a very energetic vibe. It's very adventurous, right? It's kind of very much about discovery, like every single day. And I'm sure you know there's large cities or small in some cases around the world that feeling can exist within. But I think that's for sure, it's so highlighted in a place like Shanghai. And you know, the food is another one. So there's, you know, the cultural aspect, but there's also, you know, how the city is laid out, and transportation is definitely one thing I'm going to miss. Like not necessarily having a subway.
So what's your, like for the listeners, right? Like, cause I think you have a, quite a active lifestyle. Like what's your day to day like? What's the average day? Like, what do you do? I know you do a lot of walking.
Yeah.
Right. But like, how do you maximize discovery like day to day?
I love walking. So I do walk quite a bit. And I just listen to podcasts, right? Go for runs. That's something that I really like to do. Just kind of discover new places. But even if it's the same path or the same outdoor area that you might go in, you know, the weather can change the dynamic. The podcast that you're listening to, right, could kind of make you, you know, spark some new ideas. But generally, yeah, it's, you know, trying to get outside a little bit or as much as you can, staying active.
Where do you walk? Like, is it in like downtown?
Yeah, like a typical path that I would take. Just you know, walk and or bike to Suzhou Creek, just a really beautiful area of the city, and then kind of run along that path up towards the Bund. You can go North Bund, you can go, kind of the other side, and then, you can just kind of walk, and then I literally walk back. So, I'm out for a couple hours, and I'm just trying to, I don't know, that's like one thing that I'd like to do, just, personal
Well,
interest.
Austin is, I think, probably more conducive, right? Because that probably factored into your decision. Because like if it was like, oh, like you have a job in like, I don't know, some shitty little city, it'd be harder, right? But I think Austin will be easier for you to transition to.
Yeah. Now I've talked to some people, like I'm now thinking, of course, about like the reverse culture shock and that whole topic. I was sitting down with somebody the other day, and they're talking about literally researching repatriation and all the connected topics and suggested advice. What should you be aware of?
It's a real thing.
It's a real thing. Yeah, and
I never thought about that, but it's a real thing.
Yeah. There's a lot of research behind it, and anyway, so I'm trying to also mentally, I would say, get ready for some of those transition points.
And plus, America now is very different than when you left.
Oh yeah,
right.
Yeah, and even this part of the U.S., like I've visited it for one day. Like I've never lived there. So maybe there's that discovery element that will certainly be part of, I don't know what we'll want to call it, the honeymoon phase, right? When everything is new and you're really excited to be there. But for sure, right, as time would go on, you'll dip, right? You'll peak. Like things will go up and down. I'm expecting to be certainly on a roller coaster ride. When I first came out to China, way back when, and I was living here for a short stint, right? When I did go back, I definitely felt that. So like I'm also, again, maybe able to think about that and think about those emotions that I went through and how I got through it then. Part of that was, I really want to go back to China. But, going back now, I think being a little bit more confident that regardless of where I go, whether it's this city or another country that I'm not familiar with, I think, having a little bit more maturity, maybe in certain ways, just, as time goes on, to handle some of those changes more effectively, or know what to do. It's probably going to be really difficult, but at least I know I can, reach out to this group, or I can throw on, this podcast. Like, there's little things that I think can help. And, I'm very confident that the people, a couple people I know who are there, that'll be really helpful to kind of reassimilate. I don't know the correct term there, but my point being, it's fascinating to think about.
Well, and it's not even about reassimilation, I think, right? Because that's like maybe that's your fear or anxiety talking. It's like, well, what if you treat it as like a completely new experience? It's like a new place. Like, why are we thinking about this as like you going back and then like, readopting your lifestyle? It's like, no, it's a new country. Like for all intents and purposes, a new country, but like all the shit, the banking, everything's going to work more seamlessly because you got a freaking social security number, right? Yeah. So it's almost like the people there, it's like, what's the best of this place and how can I experience it? Like treat it as like your next Shanghai.
It was fascinating. Like as part of, being able to go back, there was a document that was shared with me, and it was saying, welcome to the US, here's culturally, what you should be aware of, and here's some apps to download. And,
is this what they give to actual new immigrants? Is that the same document they would give to
no, it's from a third party. Yeah. That'd be interesting if anybody coming into the U.S. has that. But I'm sure this was a pretty...
That would be funny. You have the same document as like a fresh immigrant from like Albania or something like that. You're holding the same document, like learning the same things.
Yeah. It's so interesting to, be in a position where I'm of course familiar, right, with the culture and everything, well, not everything, but a lot of stuff in the U.S. And reading through some of those bullet points that were on that list.
Don't hitchhike.
Don't hitchhike.
What were things on that list?
One thing, tipping, right? So where should you tip, and kind of the etiquette that would.
I'm gonna be honest, that gives me the most anxiety. Even when I think about like visiting back.
Yeah.
Like not even moving, like visiting back. Honestly, like I'm not even joking. Tipping gives me the most anxiety because I'm like, like, what do I do?
I know.
Like, how much should I tip? Like, when do I tip? Like, who are the right people to tip? And when, like that gives me so much
It's like,
anxiety.
you just give, like, I think you just give them your wallet and be like, take as much as you want.
What do you need?
It's like,
I don't want to offend you.
Don't spit in my food. Like,
you can
don't
offend
drop
them.
it on
And
the
then there's
ground.
some people, like, I might not think, oh, like you should tip them, but but by etiquette, like those are the people
They're gonna follow you home.
Like when I go get a haircut at a salon, do I need to tip the hairdresser now? Because I didn't.
And the
used
person
to.
washing your hair.
Okay,
Just give them your wallet.
But
And
it's
be
always
like,
been
take
like
as
that.
much as you want.
I never used to do that. Like you go to
You
Supercuts,
scumbag.
you go to Supercuts, you're gonna tip the guy at Supercuts. No, anyway,
Yeah.
No wonder your hair. Well, anyways.
but so that gives me anxiety because I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I was back right in April most recently, and I just remember, a simple example: going to a little coffee store with my sister. We were doing some work, and I paid for like a tea, like whatever, a couple dollars, and they have an iPad system in this store, and they flip it around, right, to show you, and then it's like, what's the gratuity or the tip that you want to give, and there was 3 big options. I think it started at 15%, 20, and like 25 or something. But there was number one, like no clear option to say no tip. But I always think like if you to your point, like would you ever not give a tip? And so I'm a little like how much is appropriate
it's also because
now?
it's almost like you're a pause in time because back then tipping for a tea at a coffee shop you don't do. It's
When
not
I grew
common
up there,
practice.
if you went to grab a coffee, you wouldn't be tipping.
It's not common practice back then.
Yeah.
But here now, I feel like it's becoming more common practice.
And then from what I'm hearing as well is like, like you have the options, right? And there's no option for no tip. It just starts at like lowest 15%, which used to be like one of the higher end tips when we were growing up.
I think it's
there.
the whole system is broken.
But it's even frowned upon if you were to go 15% because that's the lowest option I heard. Just like people know it's like an unspoken rule. It's like, don't go for the 15%. It's like they have to provide it to you as an option, but you don't do that unless like you're really unhappy with the service or something. Yeah.
And Justin, just for your reference, next time you go back to America, anybody you pass, you have to tip them. No matter what, just strangers.
Well, okay, hold on. Let me throw out 2 things why I think that it's I don't know, it doesn't feel as good, anymore, right? It's like number one, the argument is like, well, we need to make a living on all that stuff. Well, just build it into the price. Period. Right. It's okay. I just don't want that ambiguity. Like your employer should be paying you enough. Period. Right. And you can build that into the price structure. Number 2, like, oh, you'll get, it's for better service. Like, no, the service should fucking be good. It should be like, it's a competitive market. Like the service in Shanghai is like impeccable. It used to suck.
I think going back specifically to the tipping system and, having lived in countries where tipping is very much ingrained in part of the structure and culture there, and versus living in Asia where there's no tipping. It's not a tipping culture, right?
Mm-hmm.
The myth of tipping improves service was blown out of the water, right? Because it's not even like, forget China or Shanghai. Go to Japan, go to Korea, go to most of the Asian countries where tipping doesn't exist, like only like in very specific circumstances, right? Rarely. But tipping generally doesn't exist. And Asia, in the Asian part of the world, you're just known for better service in general. Go to Thailand, go to these places where tipping is not part of the custom. The service, and so that raises, I don't even know why. Like, why is it though? Right? Because like logically on paper, tipping should improve service. Like it makes sense that it would. But in my experience, it doesn't.
Yeah, what's the history behind that?
It also shows service is optional.
Like, why is that? Though?
Then it gives, it's like optional. I don't know. Anyways.
Yeah, like I don't know why, but like it just.
Anyway, so prepare, so make sure, so basically you're making 20% less now, Andrew.
Wait, what else is on that list besides tipping though?
I think there are other ones that at least I might have focused on, like buying a car or car insurance. And so the whole insurance system of, how that works and how the US is set up, banking, right? Like what is it like to open a bank account? So there's things that I'm familiar with, but, in my situation, kind of trying to figure out what is the best, banking solution from, let's say, China to the US. So I was thinking about that. Buying a car is now also a conversation that like I'm having with myself at least. And, my family, right, they're super excited for me to come back. And they're also like, oh, I'm gonna, talk to this person, our contact at this dealership, and we're gonna find you, a good used car, and we'll get you one. So that's kind of fun to see, and it's also very reassuring that there might be some of these big, purchases or life decisions almost where, like I haven't had to drive. I don't even know in how long. I mean, other than, being back to visit, like I haven't needed to own a car. At least in Shanghai, I prefer not to have one just based on the convenience that we're talking about and public transportation and the speed at which you can get around the city and jump on the subway, as we all know, get on a bike, walk somewhere. It's, very convenient and preferable, at least
Are
for
you
me.
going to get a car?
I think I have to.
Yeah, in Austin, you have to. Yeah, you're not going to get around.
I've asked a couple people, is it possible to not have do you not have a car? And everybody has a car.
If you want to run a marathon every day.
Yeah. There, in Austin, there's a light rail from what I did take it once. And I was looking at the map, right? To kind of, here's where I'm going to work. And here's the closest station for that particular, light rail system. And it looks pretty close on the map. And, and then you kind of map it and get directions. And it's like, it'll take an hour and a half to walk from here to
It's
there.
like that distance is like the distance from like your house to your current office. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's like without like any rail.
Yep. Yeah.
I mean, I think there's something, like you touched on it just now. Like, I think there's something fun about like, you're not starting over again, but you're kind of like resetting up your life. Right? Just like from all like the daily practical things like banking, car insurance. But it's just like you're kind of like restructuring your life from scratch, like a blank piece of paper almost. It's like getting a new computer or a new phone, right? And like it's like that feeling, that fun feeling of like resetting it and customizing it to your liking. It's like that fresh feeling. I would imagine it's almost like that, but with your life in a way where you can kind of like start from scratch again and really think about, be mindful of how you want to set things up now and do things where, before things were just like kind of like maybe already set up for you. And now you can like really think about it and be like, okay, well, how do I want to plan this? How do I want to set this up? How do I want to structure this for, better long-term, ideas and goals? So it's like, I think that'd be pretty fun.
That's such a brilliant analogy because there's the option of just transferring all the settings over, right?
Yeah.
And then I know Andrew likes to set up his new phone as a fresh phone. So I'm curious, right? What are some things, like using Justin's metaphor, that you're going to set up?
I mean, I'm trying to honestly approach it like that. Like it is a good analogy to try to look at everything from a new angle and see what can I, like, let's just say like physical things, right? I'm not planning to move really much of a lot of things from what I own here back to the US, other than clothes and some, basic stuff. So like in that sense, maybe I need to go shopping for, appliances or, these other things that will exist in your home. But yeah, definitely, I think a car, that's a new decision that I haven't had to have. But yeah, I think it would be a little bit more of a fresh start in that sense. The apartment, right, that I would be going to, which is still, something that I'm trying to discover and trying to work through and figure out, like, what are the right questions to ask when you're now looking for an apartment or even a house in the US, in this city, and what's like the housing market like. So I find myself going down a lot of rabbit holes, but it's really interesting rabbit holes. You're researching these different topics and trying to figure out, I don't know what you want to do.
Well, I can tell you from personal experience, the car thing, you're going to get used to that real quick.
Yeah.
I just got a car last year after probably 14 years of not having a car. And I just got one last year because, I have a kid now and my wife was pressuring me to get a car, blah, blah, blah. But now it's like completely normal for me. Like at first it was like, oh my God, I'm driving a car in Shanghai.
Yeah.
I'm a car owner, after all this time. But yeah, but you get used to it real quick.
He cruises the streets and like, on like Donghulu at night, just cranks up the music.
Just picking up chicks.
That's you. Okay.
Yeah, drives by the old, was that club called La Baron?
Yeah. So what do you, in terms of like the whole reverse culture shock thing, what are you expecting?
I mean, I've from what I read and from what others tell me, I think just making sure that you're that you stay connected with, your I don't want to say your previous life, but everything that, has been very important to you over the past whatever number of years. So it's kind of almost flipping that. So, now I'm staying connected very closely with family, right, via FaceTime. So probably Aric and Jackie, I'm going to be, FaceTiming these two pretty often. But I think the social aspect, making friends and kind of getting out into the city and trying to discover, what resonates with your interests or passions. So, I mentioned I like to go running. So, trying to figure out a new park, or maybe somebody, at the office, or somebody that I, just kind of happen to find in a running group or something like that. And we can just, explore it that way. So I think that's probably top of mind for me right now and especially like from what I hear and from what I'm reading about, that's probably the biggest one.
Yeah, you're gonna fit in just fine.
If anything, it sounds exciting.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
It sounds very exciting to kind of flip the switch a little bit, right? Yeah. And kind of what Justin was saying is almost like you have a chance to start over, And it's funny to say that because you're going back to America and you're American,
This is like look at him, right? He looks like this like the classic like American guy, right? And it's just like we're like, oh, you're gonna start over. This culture shock.
Culture shock.
He's like,
and it's us telling him that.
No, he's like a Chinese dude, right? Going to America, right? It's
exactly.
like, where's a local Chinese restaurant?
Yeah, he's gonna arrive there. He's like
honestly, like he's probably in some ways more Chinese than we are.
He's gonna go there and all of a sudden it's like start talking broken English for some reason.
Yeah.
I think communication is actually an interesting point though. Like how I communicate here, right? If it's in English, especially, right, where a lot of what I do recently is all in English. But based on, the audience that I might be around, let's say if somebody isn't very familiar with English, or, you can really pick up easily on these things. I definitely adjust, the way that I would speak, or the vocabulary that I use, the speed, right, that I normally might talk. But
yeah, I think that's something also, Jackie, you can probably chime in on too, in terms of your experience in Singapore as well, is that I think you're exactly right, Andrew. The communication, I never even thought about it, because is there a big difference? I think I know the answer, but maybe I don't. I get the feeling the more time I spend here in Shanghai, the more my method of communication starts changing. Right? At first, I was very direct, always like, the American style, say what you mean, say how you feel, just be direct, blah, blah, blah. Now, maybe not so much, right? And I kind of learn, the nuances of communication here as you do in Chinese culture. I'm wondering, though, if I'm just overthinking it and it's really not that different. Like when you go back to the States or when you go back to a place like Singapore, do you feel the method and style of communication and the way, like you would say something to someone here versus maybe the way you would communicate something to someone there, do you think there is a big difference?
I don't know how big the difference will be, but there is definitely a difference. Andrew and I were actually talking about this, like even for me, observing how he talks with non-native speakers versus native speakers, his usage of word and the structure of the sentence, or how easy he would make it for the other person to understand. It's very easy to tell. And because he has, like, sometimes we got these interns in the team, and the way he talked to them, I just hearing it from my seat, I can realize that it's actually quite different from the way, for example, he talks with Aric. And I think it's a very conscious thing and very kind thing for him to do, because coming from a non-native speaker perspective, I really appreciate that. And I was in occasions, even when in Singapore, because they've got this Singlish going on. And I sat with a couple of people local from there, and I just realized, I really wouldn't understand what they were talking about, because there are a lot of local slang and everything. But they were also very kind and try to explain to me. It also takes me to ask the question, like, oh, what do you mean by atas? Like, what does that mean? And which language is that from? So I think it takes both sides to, again, to your point earlier, cross-pollinize.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think what you're saying, and I understand what you're saying, but that's coming from more from a language perspective.
Yeah.
I'm talking about culturally. Like the way, like, forget their level of English, right? Let's say their level of English is fluent, right, on both ends. Or let's say you're talking to a local Chinese here, like, regardless of the language, versus let's say when you go back to America, talk to American, you're talking to Singaporean. Do you feel your method of the way you communicate, nothing to do with language itself, do you think that changes in terms of you have to kind of maybe dance around the issue a little bit
like what
more?
Justin is saying is that
direct?
here, a lot of times when you're speaking, especially in Chinese and especially in Shanghai, it's like 你要打边球. You know what I mean? It's not.
Dude,
It's
that's
never
that's Andrew's like fucking forte. Like he is the master of like ping pong, like or like deflecting. Well, I think what'll help him is that he works extensively with people in the U.S. Like he probably like if you're talking about English communication, I mean he's probably hours and hours a day with the people over there, that's right? True. So I think from a work perspective, it won't be like that much. And I think just naturally he's quite artful. Almost to a fault in his communication, like because I think he's adapted his way of talking at work because he has to negotiate all the time, and then it's become his style. And then Jackie will just give him shit like, "Get to the fucking point, dude." It's like cut the bullshit.
No,
just
but watch, he goes back
crap.
to it in the States, and he's like talking like all rough and tumble all of a sudden.
But I don't think you were ever like that.
No.
Right? He's not a Jersey boy, dude.
Yeah, I didn't make like some massive discovery or transition when I came here to. Like, I gotta, fundamentally change how I know.
No, he came out here, he's like, oh, everybody like Rao Chen's is just like I do.
Yeah.
Well, is that in Singapore too? Like, is the culture in Singapore, can people be more direct there, or is it pretty similar to here?
I think so. I think that this communication-wise, they are more efficient. A great example is when you ask them, can you do something? They would answer, can.
Mm-hmm.
And that's it. You wouldn't say, oh, yes, sure. Why not? They just can. And then if they cannot do it, they say cannot. And
That's
then
so Singapore.
And then you just walk away, like, because they told you cannot. Just stop arguing from there. So I think there is a bit of efficiency in their communication.
Yeah.
And because of the massive use of slang, they can also explain very complicated concept in just a simple slang. And they just throw that slang out. And I'm still on the journey of learning all that.
It's like their 成语.
Yeah, it's fascinating to see that. And if you think about the culture of the city, they are quite an efficient society.
Okay, I think we have one more topic to talk about. So, Jackie, what are you going to miss most about this dude next to you?
Oh my God, now this is the moment that I start to cry.
Here's a box of tissues.
What am I going to miss most?
Or what won't you miss?
Yeah.
How he ping-pong things, I won't miss that.
The indirectness,
Yeah.
the Tai Chi. He's like a master Tai Chi, not physically.
It's
but
so
like
interesting to
verbal.
hear this being described.
He's a master Tai Chi. Like now it's all coming out.
Yeah.
The master Tai Chi.
I think I just miss having a great friend that's just nearby. Because the reality is we will be having time differences and there is a distance in terms of our communication. There is a time lag. I know it's almost one call away, but not really. So I think I would miss that. Like I know he's the person that I would pick up a phone call and call him if I'm in a really bad situation or something like that. But I don't think that will be the case. Now he's moving away with so much time differences.
Cut to like 3 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
Hello.
Ring, ring.
I can't help it.
Yeah. Stay awake longer.
My food still isn't here. What the fuck happened, Andrew?
What about you, Aric?
Oh man, I think you don't realize these things until it's about to happen. Like this last 6 months or 9 months, like we've hung out the least that we have in the last few years. Like we used to see, well, first of all, we were like working directly together before. So I would see him all the time. And then like we would be doing stuff like working out all the time. Right. And I'm going to just miss like the walks, the talks, like the conversations, like his fresh perspective on things, like just miss him like as a person, right? Just existentially, I think. Yeah. That's
my
a tough
turn.
one.
Andrew.
Yeah.
No, but like, I mean, I obviously we don't know each other that well, but from everything, from the few times we have, been around each other, and from everything I've heard from Aric and from what I'm hearing today from Jackie, I mean, and from everything that I can tell, you seem like you seem like truly a great person. Yeah. Yeah. So even as
Good to hear.
briefly as we've been able to hang out,
Yeah.
it's been a pleasure knowing you, man.
Oh yeah. Likewise.
And I'm gonna come out to Austin and see you, man.
You should.
Yeah,
I'll be there.
all joking aside, Austin is a place that really entices me. Yeah,
You hear that,
yeah.
Joe Rogan?
I find that real. No, because everything I've never
You got
been there,
competition now, motherfucker.
but it sounds really attractive to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's been fascinating hearing what people really like about Austin. The more that I talk to people who are there right now or people who are from there, I know a couple people even out here, and it's it's actually very positive. Like I was expecting people to say, oh, it's too small or it's not what everybody makes it out to be. But yeah, it sounds like there's a lot of really positive.
I've heard great things.
Yeah, really good things. Yeah.
And what if we all move to Texas?
I don't mind.
Should we just do that?
well,
I wouldn't put that on the table.
What taxes? Taxes. I was going to say something about
No
taxes.
taxes.
Texas has like the lowest taxes of all the states in America, right?
Is that why it's called Texas?
it's called Texas because of Tejas, friendship. It's a Native American word. But if you all decided to move out there, I wouldn't be against it. It's a sad day for YSLD.
What is that?
What is that, Jackie? What's YSLD?
That's why I said day.
I don't know. It's a secret.
All right, whatever. I don't care anymore. Anyway, that's it for today, folks. Jackie, Andrew, thanks
Thank you for
coming
having
over.
us.
Yeah.
I'm Justin.
I'm a submariner.
And I'm Howie.
All right. Be good. Be well. Peace.
The sun will see.